Yes. Hello everybody, in this video I'm going to talk about the study guide about my syllabus for the distance education course at Bahçeşehir University. In this fourth assignment I prepared a study guide for those for 3 chapters that I picked. So the chapters I picked are They Can Carries Chapter 1 Introduction to Instructional Design, They Can Carries Chapter 2 Assessing Needs to Identify Instructional Goals, and the third chapter is third reading is about Morrison Rose and Camp's Chapter 3 Learner and Contextual Analysis. And also, I wrote down the pedagogical learning theories behind the course design and these readings. Also, I wrote the exercises. So, in this video, I'm going to talk about the exercises and briefly these chapters and answers for the exercises, the solutions. So, let's get started with the first chapter. Introduction to Instructional Design. When we look at the chapter summary, this chapter is about the overall book of this course. Actually, it's the main course pack. So, the authors state here that their systems approach to instructional design and define their model in detail. So their model basically includes analyzing the problem, developing the solutions, designing the solutions, implementing of the solutions, evaluation of the overall process. So we simply call it EDT model: analyze, develop, design, develop, implement, and evaluate. EDT model. So they state that these above are the main components of their systems approach, and there are more components like determining instructional goals, analyzing the instructional goal, analyze learners and context, and write performance objectives, and develop assessment instruments, develop instructional strategy, and develop and select instruction, design and conduct a formative evaluation, revise instruction, and conduct summative evaluation. So, learning strategies. In this week's class and chapter, synchronous learning strategy is used. Moreover, through online interaction, learners are aimed to be more active while describing the instructional systems design, and thus student-centered learning approach is adopted and applied. The instructor is in the position of a guide and facilitator. The instructor creates group discussions and fosters questions about the concept of instructional systems design. Web 2 tools, Web 2.0 tools to be used in this week's chapter. Adobe Connect and its Learning LMS platform are used as Web 2.0 tools. Via Adobe Connect, students are able to discuss the concepts online and state their opinions in small group discussions. Also, they can follow the instructions and access this week's readings on its learning platform. Moreover, they can watch the class that's recorded on the platform. The exercises. Small group discussions open Google documents for students to collaborate and elaborate on their thoughts, define the concept of instructional design in their small groups, and choose a speaker to state their overall definition. When we look at the chapter 2 and at its summary, this chapter focuses on the most crucial part of instructional design process, that is, identifying the instructional goals, which are clear statements of behavior that learners are to demonstrate as a result of instruction. Two basic methods are used to identify instructional goals: the subject matter expert approach and the performance technology approach. The concepts discussed in this chapter are needs assessment, clarifying instructional goals, learners' context and tools, criteria for establishing instructional goals. This chapter concludes that to define instructional goals, these steps should be followed. Write down the instructional goal, generate a list of all the behaviors that the learners should perform to demonstrate they have achieved the goal, analyze the expanded list of behaviors and incorporate the selected behaviors, examine the revised goal statement. Learning strategies. In this week's class and chapter, synchronous learning strategy is used. Moreover, through online interaction, again, learners are aimed to be more active while assessing needs and identifying the instructional goals. And thus, student-centered approach is adopted and applied. Again, the instructor is in the facilitator role, and he triggers group discussion questions, and he monitors and supervises the group discussions. So he is like an anchor that moderates a forum. So furthermore, students try to define steps of instructional goals and state whether they prefer the subject matter expert or performance technology approach, and why. Web 2.0 tools to be used in this week's chapter are again Adobe Connect and its Learning Elements platform, exercises, small group discussions, open the Google document for students to collaborate and elaborate on their thoughts, define instructional goals, and the steps used in definition of instructional goals in their small group discussions. Also choose a speaker to state their overall discussion. Create a scheme of instructional goal steps with their group members. So, when we look at the final chapter of our assignment, which is from Morrison, Ross, and Camp, Chapter 3, Learner and Contextual Analysis. When we have a look at the chapter summary, this chapter deals with the general and specific learner characteristics, types of learners, their learning styles, types of context, which are instructional context and transfer context. The chapter also explains the steps for conducting an analysis, a context analysis, and steps for conducting a context analysis include 1. Collecting data and analyzing data. So, to sum up, knowing about student characteristics, their age, gender, learning style, learning preferences, specific entry skills versus general entry skills provides a potentially valuable basis for designing the instruction. Contextual analysis, on the other hand, provides information about the environmental factors that will affect the design and the delivery of instruction. So, learning strategies in this week's class. Asynchronous learning strategy is used. In the previous 2 chapters, I used synchronous learning strategy, but this week I prefer to use asynchronous learning strategy because I wanted students to be more active and to manage the class without the instructor. So I wanted to see how they do it. So again, it's a whole student-centered approach, and the instructor is absent in this learning strategy. And also the instructor creates a Google document for students to get engaged with the stage of learner and context analysis. Furthermore, students write their opinions and answer the questions created created by the instructor. So, Web 2.0 tools to be used in this week's chapter. Again, it's Learning and Adobe Connect and Google Documents. So, the students use this Learning as a discussion forum, and they use Google Document as to generate their ideas and write an overall paper about the contextual analysis and learner analysis. So, in this week's exercises, it's a whole group discussions, whole class discussion indeed, and open Google document for students to collaborate and elaborate on their thoughts and analyzing posts of their peers and commenting on the post of their peers. So, in this chapter, pedagogical learning theories behind the course design is constructivism first. Throughout the course, students develop their own instructional design systems by posting on the case studies given both asynchronously and synchronously. It says that people construct their own understanding and knowledge of the world through experiencing things and reflecting on those experiences. So, this is basically the definition of constructivism. And actually, I chose to use constructivism as a pedagogical theoretical ground so that they can build and reflect on one another's theories. And another web learning theory that I use is web-based theory learning, and this can be defined as the use of computer and internet technologies to deliver a broad array of solutions to enable learning and improve performance. So, in this course, I used self-paced learning approach as well, in which learners are free to learn at their own pace and to define personal learning paths based on their individual needs and interests. When we come to the exercises in chapter 1, I triggered the discussion question, and which is what's the instructional design or strategy, and the other question is what's a system. So, in this exercise, students are split into groups of 3 or 4 in the breakout sessions on the Connect platform, and in the end, each group comes up with a definition for ID and its purpose as stated in this chapter by Dick and Carey. So when we have a look at Dick and Carey's chapter, you will see that they define the system first and their system's approach. Here, the purpose of their book in the first chapter. So, their ADDIE model, determining instructional goals, analyzing the instructional goal, analyzing learners and context, writing performance objectives, developing assessment instruments, so and strategies, and so on. Actually, students are supposed to write these strategies, these steps for the instructional design for this week's exercise. So, moreover, and in the chapter 2, I again create a Google document for students to identify an instructional goal that meets the criteria for initiating the design of effective instruction. Also write an instructional goal that meets the criteria for initiating the development of instructional goals. So, in this exercise, students post their opinions individually on the common Google document created by me, and they comment on one another's posts, and at the end of the discussion the instructor covers up the answers and they acquire the importance of the needs assessment and goal analysis as stated by Dick and Carey. So actually they should come up with this importance, as they state perhaps the most critical event in the instructional design process is identifying the instructional goal. So, and they should learn the approaches for subject matter expert approach and performance technology approach, their definitions, and how to set instructional goals in this chapter, needs assessment strategies, and also 5 essential informational components of a needs assessment, actual, optimal, feelings, causes, and solution. The purpose of the study is to acquire information on each of these components in order to verify a need and identify possible solutions. So, students should come up with these answers as a solution to this exercise. They should clearly define the needs assessment and the importance of instructional goals. In the final chapter, as I state about Morrison, Rosa, and Kemp, ID project design, and students design ID project for an instructional problem in groups of 3 or 4, and first they find the problem, then they define their instructional goals, and they started by analyzing learners, chapters, context. So they discuss their answers and their opinions on a Google document or its learning platform as a discussion forum. The answer to this exercise is that, as stated in Morrison, Ross, and Kemp's book, the goal of instructional design is to make learning more efficient, more effective, and less difficult. So here is the book, here is the chapter. Sorry for that, it was about to be chapter 3. Sorry for this inconvenience. Just a minute. Yes. Okay, learner and contextual analysis. So, okay, when designing an instructional plan, decide early in the initial stage which characteristics of your learner or trainees to identify to help design decisions. So, as students, the ID project groups should decide their instructional plans and should consider these steps as learner or trainees for their target group. So they should take into account that types of learner characteristics, countless traits differentiate learners, initiating learner analysis. Also, these tests, general characteristics, specific characteristics, and learning styles of their learnings. So, defining the answer for defining the learner needs, learner assessments, their context is a very important, and this chapter gives a clear definition and solution for this problem, for this exercise. So the answer of this exercise lies in the chapter. So this is the end of our video and my assignment. I hope you enjoyed and learned something, and thank you for watching.